All right, 3 o'clock. I think we might start. Dear guests, please turn your webcams on. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues all over the world, this is Claudio speaking as well, as usual. Dr. Adams, please mute your microphones. Anam as well. There's some feedback. We're entering. Great, thank you. So this is installment number 9 in the webinar series of the International Consortium on Rehabilitation Robotics. And I'm, as usual, proud to introduce to you our speakers for today's webinar on, well, rehabilitation and/or robotics for rehabilitation all over the world, and especially, let me put it like this, in countries we don't hear so much about during our conferences. So I'm really proud to say that today we have people connected from all over the world. I mean, Dr. Srinivasan from India, Dr. Anam from Indonesia, Dr. Adams from Ghana, on behalf of Ebenezer Adams from Nigeria, on behalf of Ebenezer Adams from Ghana, who cannot be here live because he's still traveling. We're all very busy people, aren't we? Good. The webinar is organized as usual. We'll have 4 talks in this order by Dr. Srinivasan, Dr. Anam, Dr. Adams, and the one on behalf of Dr. Ebenezer Adams, about 15 minutes each. And then we'll open the floor for some panel discussion. I invite our speakers to keep the time, please, 15 minutes, because the most interesting part usually is when we start discussing. So let me quickly introduce our guests formally, and then we can start. Our first guest, Professor Sujatha Srinivasan, who founded and is directing the TTK Center for Rehabilitation Research and Device Development and the National Center for Assistive Health Technology, the NCH-AHT, at the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras. R2D2's interdisciplinary translational research, so the research and device development, focuses on development of assistive and rehabilitation devices, enhancing the lifestyle of person with movement disabilities, while being biomechanically appropriate, affordable, and accessible. And we should start here learning our first lesson. So affordability and accessibility, I would say, usually play a secondary part in our conferences because we're also proud of showing off the toys that get out of our labs. But like I always say, if it only works in your lab, it's worthless. So this is incredibly important. As a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Professor Srinivasan's research has resulted in over 75 refereed journal and conference publications, 50 patents, and 7 commercial products. She is actually the co-founder of the IITM incubated startups on assistive device, Thrive Mobility and NeoMotion, and the recipient of several awards, including the Abdul Kalam Technology Innovation National Fellowship and Honorary Professorship at University College London of UK. I still remember with great pleasure your plenary talk this year in Chicago, actually. That was May, if I'm not wrong. And that's where I introduced myself to Dr. Srinivasan. Our second speaker, Professor Khairul Anam, Associate Professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of Jember, Indonesia, and a personal friend, I would say. We've exchanged personal. He's been visiting us in Germany, and I've been visiting them in the lovely town of Jember, in the center of the island, well, center-east section of the island of Java. And I stayed there 10 days, some of the most interesting and productive 10 days of my career. So Anam's research focuses on artificial intelligence, deep learning, and control system with applications in robotics, biosignal processing, and intelligent rehabilitation systems. Earned his PhD in electrical and electronic engineering from the University of Technology of Sydney, Australia, 2016. He also holds a master's degree in control engineering from the Institute of Technology Sepuluh November in Indonesia, and a bachelor's degree from the University Brawijaya, again in Indonesia. Dr. Anam currently serves as the head of the master's program in electrical engineering and the head of AI and Internet of Things Division at Information Technology Center at the University of Jember. And he's also the coordinator of research, innovation, and publication activity at the IEEE Indonesia section. I would go then to our third guest, Dr. Chinonso Adams, physiotherapist and robotics enthusiast specializing in the rehabilitation of patients with stroke. And she currently serves as assistant lecturer at the University of Medical Sciences in Ondo, Nigeria. Chinonso holds a master's degree in physiotherapy and has completed the transitional doctor of physiotherapy program. So we have a doctor here as well. Doctors, medical doctors are usually underrepresented in our conferences. So there's one more reason to be proud of this webinar. Chinonso is the co-author of a publication called Pragmatic Recommendations to Improve Access to Rehabilitation Robots, Assistive Technology, and Neurorehabilitation Services in Africa. Research interests lie in neurorehabilitation robotics and neurophysiotherapy. As a lead person for the Stroke Association Support Network Ghana Research, Advocacy, and Patients Employment Team, Dr. Chinonso contributes to initiatives promoting stroke care and rehabilitation. And I'll finish it with saying that her experience also includes involvement in the IFE Rehabilitation Robotics Center Group, the IR3G, at Obafemi Awolowo University, where she participated in the PULSAR, which is an acronym for Platform for Upper Limb Stroke Rehabilitation Study, focusing on the development and application of rehabilitation robots for stroke management. One paragraph about our last guest, who, like I said, cannot be here in person because of traveling commitment. Dr. Ebenezer Adams is a distinguished rehabilitation expert and advocate, renowned for his tireless efforts in shaping stroke and cardiovascular disease care and support in Ghana and in the whole of Africa. As the co-founder and executive director of the Stroke Association Support Network Ghana, the SASNet of Ghana, he spearheads initiatives that promote advocacy, research, and meaningful involvement of persons living with stroke and CVD. CVD stands for cardiovascular diseases. Ed Adams is the first author of the article co-authored with Dr. Chinonso, proceedings of the ICOR SASNet Ghana Neurorehabilitation Workshop in 2024. He has a prolific publication record comprising more than 30 peer-reviewed articles and multiple co-authored papers in high-impact journals. I'm sorry for this summary, but the curriculum vitae usually are so long that it would take one single webinar to be on par with that. So without much further ado, I say, Dr. Srinivasan, the floor is yours, and please share your screen.
I will do that.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Hey, hello everyone joining us for this webinar from all across the world. Thank you for the invitation, Claudio, to be a part of this webinar series. So I will talk about our experience in developing a rehab robot and taking it from the lab to the clinic to home in my 15 minutes. So this is work that we have done at IIT Madras in collaboration with CMC Vellore, and I'll give you a little bit of introduction about where we are and what we do. IIT Madras is the #1 engineering institution in India, located in the southern part of India on the coast. And at IIT Madras, I head these two centers, which are focused on, so it's basically an ecosystem for developing assistive technologies as well as rehabilitation robots. The first center is R2D2, the TTK Center for Rehabilitation Research and Device Development, where we have created facilities for biomechanical testing, as well as testing to ISO standards for wheelchairs, for prosthetics, etc. So that's where most of the R&D happens. And the National Center for Assistive Health Technologies, which is more of an outreach center. We also do training, clinical training and dissemination, as well as run wheelchair skills training programs at this center. So the motivation for our work comes from the fact that there are millions of people in India with movement disability. And as people in this field know, the WHO estimates that very few of those people have access to assistive technologies and rehabilitation. And if you look at the spectrum of these technologies, on the one hand, you have very low cost technologies, but sometimes they're not even functional. They may be too simple to be functional. On the other hand, you have very sophisticated high-tech technologies, which have rarely, in the case of rehabilitation, rarely made it from the lab to the market, to the clinic in an affordable manner, in a manner where they are freely available and are easy to access. And so at R2D2, we work sort of in the middle space. We are trying to focus on functionality, high quality, and affordability using an interdisciplinary translational approach. And using this approach, we have so far translated 7 devices to the market. 6 of them are assistive devices. Pluto H is our first rehabilitation robot that we have commercialized. We are waiting for the final step of medical regulatory approval, but we've done extensive trials, and I will present what we've been able to achieve with Pluto H in this webinar. So one of the reasons we're able to do this translation in an affordable manner is that we have evolved what we now call the grid model, where the 4 pillars are grants, research, industry, and dissemination. And we rely on grants from the government or foundations, where the interest is to create social impact, as opposed to some kind of financial return on investment. And the research organization is sort of the central pillar, which brings together these other partners, and where the focus is on development with scientific rigor. And it also acts as a grant multiplier because of the resources that the research institution is able to provide over and above the grant money that we get. We typically work with an industry partner, could be an established industry or or a spin-off from our lab. And we also work extensively with dissemination partners who could be clinicians, caregivers, end users, so that the designs are user-centric and there is user involvement at every stage of development. And the goal is to go from prototype to product for maximum impact. So this is a snapshot of some of the devices, and I will talk specifically about Pluto, which is a rehab robot in this seminar. So if you look at the journey from the time of, say, injury or a stroke, or, it starts off with some hospitalization, all the way up to using assistive technologies, which are absolutely essential for independent living and social participation. Assistive technologies are what help bridge the gap between disability and ability. And along this journey, rehabilitation plays an important role, because to be able to use assistive devices, for assistive devices to work well, rehabilitation is a very important part of the journey. But there are many challenges. Sorry. There are many challenges to effectively incorporate rehab. especially in countries like India. And my collaborators and I, some of my collaborators and I actually published a chapter on this in this book. I'm sorry, I forgot. I don't have the name of the book, but I'll get that to you later. But this was a book which was edited by Professor Michelle Johnson and Professor Rochelle Mendonça from Columbia. Michelle Johnson is from UPenn and Rochelle is from Columbia University. And we contributed a chapter on rehabilitation in LMICs, like in the Asia Pacific region, specifically India. So one of the factors is there are very few professionals for physical medicine and rehabilitation compared to the millions of people who need neuro rehab. The ratio is something of the order of hundreds to every million patients who need rehab. So it's a very poor ratio, which presents a challenge in having people access rehab. There's also a profound lack of awareness on the role of rehab, on the value of rehab, and this is true even among clinicians. Rehab is generally a neglected part of the recovery process. Other challenges include the lack of financial support, no insurance. Many people are already financially affected by the disability. So that makes it even more of a challenge to access rehabilitation. And in a country like India, where 70% of the people who need these services live in rural areas, access to rehab becomes even more of a challenge, because a few hospitals in major cities may have good rehab clinics, but in rural areas or even in tier 2, tier 3 cities, it's very difficult to access good rehab services. And even in the cities, there's a lack of devices suited to the Indian context. Most of them are very expensive. They're imported rehab equipment, and not every hospital would be able to afford it. Poor return on investment, also lack of serviceability. These are all challenges that happen with incorporating rehab into the recovery process. So typical rehab involves, traditional tools like what you see here. It involves a one-on-one interaction with a therapist and passive tools which give little or no feedback, which also results in poor adherence to therapy, because you can imagine how boring it must be to do this sort of exercise repeatedly for long periods of time. So there are benefits to using technology, because semi-automation can allow therapists to focus on the planning of the therapy. They can attend to more patients rather than focusing on delivery to one patient at a time. And a robot, of course, can administer therapy without exhaustion continuously. For severe impairments, robots can be designed to assist as needed, which is another advantage. And monitored home-based rehab could actually reduce the necessity to travel for therapy. Biofeedback can help therapists monitor progress, which can also be a motivating factor for the patient. And gamification can be a huge motivator because it can make the training more engaging and keep allow the user to perform more intense therapy. So if you look at hand robots, hand rehabilitation is generally neglected post-stroke. And if you look at hand robots, you can classify them into simple robots, which are which have less than 2 degrees of freedom. They're designed for specific functions, but you need to have an array of these robots to be able to administer the different therapy for the different hand movements. They're The advantage is they are compact and easy to use, but you're going to have a number of them. On the other hand, complex robots can train multiple functions, but very few of them have really made the journey from lab to a clinic. And so we took inspiration from the kitchen blender. You have a single motor, which is usually the most expensive part of the robot, and we have different passive mechanisms that can be plugged in to allow different movements of the hand to be trained. And that is Pluto, our plug-and train robot for hand rehabilitation. And this work is in collaboration with a premier rehabilitation institute in India called CMC Vellore. So R2D2, and so if you can see here in the grid model, we have funding from these organizations. The research component is R2D2 and CMC Vellore. And we have a startup, Thrive Mobility, which is Thrive Rehab, which is commercializing this device. And dissemination is across clinics all over India. So I will just play this quick video that shows what Pluto can do. So it's a portable robot. It's compact. Everything fits into a suitcase. So a therapist can take it to the bedside of a user. It could be to the home of a user, or even if the user is recovering, it can be taken to the bedside of the user rather than the user having to come to the robot. You can plug in different passive mechanisms which can train these different basic movements during therapy. So you have here the movements of the wrist as well as the forearm. You can also have attachments that can train for functional movements. The therapist can do quantitative assessments. The data can be saved so that progress could be monitored. And the training is gamified. You can have passive active or active assisted regimes, which and the games are they adjust to, they are performance adapted, so they adjust to how well the patient is doing. So which makes, then there are 10 plus options for the games to keep the patient motivated and engaged. We've tested it in over 8 centers across India, and more than 1,000 users so far. It's being used for therapy in these 8 centers. And right now, Thrive is commercializing this robot, and we are waiting on the medical regulatory approval from the Indian authorities to start manufacturing and selling the robot to clinics. So we also thought, let's evaluate Pluto for home-based rehabilitation. So we conducted a feasibility study with 7 chronic stroke survivors, out of which 5 persisted with the device. They used the device for 4 weeks, and we looked at feasibility using the system usability scale for the device, as well as clinical outcome measures for the patients. And the results were very encouraging. The system usability score was an excellent 81.5 out of 100. And we found that the patients trained for an average of 21.5 out of the 28 days, and they needed technical help 3 to 4 times. This could have been help over the phone. There was only 1 or 2 instances where somebody had to go and do something to the device. And we looked at various clinical outcomes, and 3 out of the 4 showed difference in the clinical outcome pre and post therapy, which were above the minimum clinically important difference, the MCID, for these clinical outcomes. So
Dr. Srinivasan, your time is almost up.
Yes, this is my last slide. So the home base helped increase the training duration from 36 minutes a day to 76 minutes a day. And this is a user who is in a remote place who could not travel for therapy otherwise. He was 100 kilometers away from the nearest rehab center. So it showed that home-based rehabilitation is possible, which was very encouraging. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the collaborators for our work at R2D2, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I found the video about the Pluto particularly impressive. I wish some of my associates will make it to a product like that one day. I will be proud of that. Good, wonderful. We move to the second talk today by Dr. Anam. Anam, will you please share your slides?
Okay. Let me try to share my slide.
That's perfect. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening for all audience. Thank you very much for Prof. Claudio Castellani for inviting me to be one of speaker of this very insightful conferences, our webinar, and I'm so delightful to have a presentation from Professor Sujatha Srinivasan. It is very insightful, and thank you. I would like to share about, in general, first about rehabilitation robotic in Indonesia, and then I will try to share my current research on this rehabilitation robot. This is my CV, maybe already introduced by Professor Claudio, and this is my country, Indonesia, very far from German, from Erlangen, where Professor Claudio is now. So very far, maybe if we or someone from Germany to Indonesia is very far, maybe it takes about 15 hours flight plus 4 hours driving, so very far. Okay, this is our university in the East Java. So Java Islands is the fifth biggest island in Indonesia, and we are located on the eastern part of Java Island. Okay, this is our area. So maybe in the beginning, I would like to inform all of you about our research on rehabilitation robotic, especially in Indonesia. I just did a brief literature review from Google Scholar publication. And then I found that if we look at the robotic rehabilitation system, maybe we can see from different point of views, from the target patient, from the body part, and etc. And from the target patient, we can see some of researchers focused on post-stroke patient, or else maybe spinal cord injury, and etc. From the body part, some of them focus on upper limb and lower limb, and also on general movement of body. And about technological aspect, can be focused on exoskeleton, arm manipulator robot, wearable robot, actuator robot, and etc. About the control system as well. Like there is a fuzzy control, adaptive PID controller, and also other control system. And with the therapy method, maybe we can see there are some research on this area, like range of motion, passive range of motion, and etc. And this is the thing that Professor Srinivasra mentioned before about the need and market analysis in low and middle income country. Actually, some researcher already did some researcher about the needs and market analysis. Actually, we need this kind of rehabilitation robot, but again, because they are so expensive and mostly are imported from overseas, and so it is not affordable for all or for many hospitals in Indonesia. Maybe there are very few hospital that has this rehabilitation center. So this is the Indonesia challenges. The local robot development is primarily focused on research and development, and still in prototyping. So this is the fact that we found. And maybe from the clinical validation, we found in the middle Java, there is one university, we call it Diponegoro University. This university has a Diponegoro National Hospital, and there is one researcher focused on stroke rehabilitation as well, and there is clinical validation in that matter, but still not in mass production, still in the very beginning of the clinical validation. So this is the challenges of Indonesia. And another thing is about the technical and design challenges. So about the mechanical design, about local adaptability, also about the control system, about the smart integration, artificial intelligence, IoT, and also about the actuator power and efficiency, because most of them, maybe the electrical power, electrical motor, most of them are imported from the overseas. And also from the economic and production challenges, cost and affordability is very concerned in our country. So because the primary economic challenge remains the requirement for the robotic technology to be affordable, and also production scalability, and also long-term viability. So this is the issue that we found in many publications that already published in Art Journal. And let's move on to our research on rehabilitation robotics. Actually, we started our research on robot rehabilitation at sorry in 2015, and currently wait, I will share the audio as well. So in here, as Professor Srinivasan mentioned before, that the rehabilitation therapy, the traditional one, most of them are easy to get bored for the patient. So that's why we need some technology, assistive robot, and also the gamification. So in here we have like this one is like mirroring. From the left one is the healthy one, and then the right one is the paralyzed one. So the health one will help the paralyzed one to do therapy, and also there is a game that is connected to this system. So this system, eh, we just registered this one. I mean, we registered this one in the patent in Indonesia patent in 2022. Until now, still in the process under evaluation of the government. And also this one, both are mirroring, but from the left one is the the healthy hand wearing the glove, but on the right side is just like a very simple button. But the idea is same, it is mirroring. So how the healthy hand will help the paralyzed one wear the robot. But again, this one is still maybe still prototyping. Not like Pluto is already mass production probably, or maybe already clinical examination, but this one is still in very beginning of prototyping. But we just keep this one for a long time, maybe for 1 year, and the presentation of Professor Nifasar inspired us, if we maybe it's very good idea to spin off this as soon as possible. Another research, again, as Professor Srinivasan mentioned before, that we need a robotic technology that can help the person as needed. So how can we know, we understand the need of the person? In here, we need kind of like biosignal feedback from electromyography signal. So from the electromyography signal, we try to get some feature from the signal, and then using machine learning as well as maybe deep learning, we try to predict the kind of the force elicited by the person or intended by the person. So we will help the person to move the hand. The robot, I mean, will have the movement of the hand of the patient as needed. So this is the idea, control as needed. But again, how can we measure or how can we predict the need of the person to elicit or to give force to the hand? So this is the challenges, because we need some biosignal feedback. In here, we used very low cost thing. In here, maybe the EMG signal, that EMG devices that we use here, Mayo Ambend. But unfortunately, the product or the manufacturer did not produce this one anymore. So this because this one is actually is very good one and also cheap one, but the problem is it is not in the market anymore. So this is the video. We try to predict the force elicited by the person, the intended force by the person. Okay. Okay, another thing is the same thing, but we try to uh, improve the accuracy, improve the accuracy or the error. So to minimize the error, because this one we predict the variable, not predict the kind of movement or the group of movement. We here is try to predict the force, which is the variable. Or the variable. This force is very maybe not very easy to predict, but in here we just predict the grip force, not every single finger force, not fingertip, just only grip force. So the user should hold the hand to move the robot. So, but this one is for all fingers together. And this is the methodology, and this is the video. Another one is we would like to predict the fingertip of the patient, because just only one hand grip maybe is very easy, as Prof. Claudio said. It's very easy because only one parameter. If we can predict more than one parameter, for example, every fingertip, the system can predict, can estimate the force on the every fingertip, it will be better, because maybe the kind of the therapy can be more the variable, there are so many possibilities for a therapy. But before that, because we got some problem with the Mayo Amben, some of them has broken. So we need to develop our own Mayo EMG band. In here in the market, in the marketplace, this one is we call Mayoware. Mayoware is very cheap in here. Maybe in US dollar around 10 maybe, or maybe $50 maybe, because in Indonesia around 1 million. But it is this one only for one channel, and we would like to mimic the Mayo Amben who circulate the hand. So in here we develop our own system. This one is printed, 3D printed one. So we try to print to join every single channel of MayoWare and become like Mayo Ambend that we get used to before. One is the
Persiapan
process.
pengambilan data.
So in
Menggenggam.
bahasa, you can see. So this one is still grip
Lepaskan.
force. In here still try to predict the grip force.
Istirahat.
This one is the robot. Okay, like this one. Okay, we move to the next one. In here, as I said before, we need to get more senses, more force from fingertip, not only from one hand or one variable, but how can we predict every force elicited in the finger in every single fingertip of the person in here. So again, we use our customized EMG Mayo armband, and then this one is like fingertip sensors, yeah, in here, and then we develop some machine learning. In here is deep learning, transfer learning, and then try to move the robot. This one is just for experimental, not the real one. Okay.
Persiapan pengambilan
This one is
data.
sensor for fingertip sensor.
Menggenggam.
This one. And this one, the EMG signal, our
Lepaskan.
customized EMG Mayo band.
Menggenggam.
For the input, and this one is for the target. So we try to pass
Lepaskan.
input one, the input EMG signal, and this is the output.
Menggenggam.
There is 6 sensors here. For
Lepaskan.
For the thumb, there is abduction and also flexion extension.
Pengambilan data telah selesai.
Flexion and extension. So this is the data that we collect, and this is the real time one.
Vibrasi dimulai. Lakukan gerakan genggam.
This robot actually later on we would like to use the exoskeleton one, but
Gerakan
because we want to simulate the accuracy or the prediction
Vibrasi
performances.
selesai. Proses pengujian dimulai.
Robot. Okay. So this is the result of the experiment.
Anam, your time is almost up now.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last one is for the incremental learning, because we need calibration day by day for 1 month maybe. So we try to develop a model, machine learning model can be good for all session for all days. Okay, I just make it quick, and also we develop like a wheelchair using sound activation. So this one for a cerebral palsy person. Okay. Okay, this is the voice is very, very difficult to predict because this is the challenges. Okay, I just make it quick. This is the experiment, but again, our problem, all of them are still in the lab. We have some challenges to make it possible for many domestic people in Indonesia. Maybe I need to learn from Professor Srinivasan to develop more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anam. Brilliant talk, as usual. And so we move to our last but not least important, of course, speaker, Dr. Chinonso Adams. Will you please share your screen?
Yeah. Okay, so can you see the screen?
Actually, not yet, no.
Okay. Yeah, to be shared right now. Okay. Declare.
No, we still see our own webcams.
Okay, so I don't know if it's possible for you to help me share it on your end.
Sorry, say that again.
I said that could you assist me to share it on your own end?
I do have a copy of your slides actually, so I can share that for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. So you will have to tell me next slide and I will go to the next slide.
No problem. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Claudio, for the introduction. I am Chinonso Amanda Adams, and I'll be speaking on behalf of myself and Sir Adams. We'll be speaking using case studies in Nigeria and then Ghana. So rehabilitation robotics in low and middle income countries. Next, this is my bio when you read, and these are the outline. Next, the outline. So the sub will be talking on some touch points, background, and finally we'll end it with the call to action and then the conclusion. Next,
Sorry,
please.
I don't see the screen. I don't see the. Are you sharing? I don't see the screen.
Yes, I'm sharing.
Wait
But
a second.
Mr. Claudio has.
Wait a second. I need to share. I need to share your slides.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, we're now sharing your slides. I'm now at the title slide. Can you see that? Actually, you should be able to see it, right?
Yes, I can.
Great. So just let me know when you want me to go to the next slide. That'll be perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so starting with I'm Chinonso Amanda Adams, and I'll be speaking on behalf of myself and Sir Adams. We'll be using case studies of Nigeria and Ghana to describe the state of rehabilitation robotics in low and middle income countries. Using case in point, the two countries I mentioned. So please next. Yeah, so these are my bio. Next, please. So this is the outline, the background, then describing the topics, and we'll finally be ending with a call to action and then the conclusion. Next, please. So 3 main points. We would like to, at the end of this webinar, we should be able to know the state of rehabilitation robotics in low and middle income countries, specifically Africa. We'd like to be knowing if there is still room, if there is need for rehabilitation robotics, and then the status of infrastructure and the level of acceptance of these rehabilitation robots. Next, please. So, as a background, we have studies telling us that 15% of the world's population live with disabilities. And then we have 80% of them residing in LMICs. What this points to us is that LMICs cannot be ignored when it comes to rehabilitation robots, cannot be ignored when it comes to assistive technology and the use of these to enable persons with disabilities, because we have up to 80% residing in LMICs. And then we have presently the situation here is that there are challenges. There are inadequate rehabilitation services, and this is affecting the quality of life of the persons with disabilities, and is also impeding recovery. So we have rehabilitation services that assist these persons with disabilities. We have different team members, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, and different other contributors, all aiming to ensure that the there's rehabilitation of persons, not just with stroke. But why I mentioned stroke is because in Stroke Association Support Network, which Mr. Adams is, he reviews the people that have disabilities as a result of stroke. Next slide, please. Okay, so rehabilitation robotics, simply put, the incorporation of robotics in order to address the rehabilitation needs of people with disabilities. Next slide, please. Okay, so I have a background in academics, and so despite the fact that due to interactions with other colleagues in Nigeria and Ghana, we are aware of the situation, the fears, the concerns of people towards rehabilitation robotics, but I usually like to use data. So the Nuclear Rehabilitation Robotics team here in Nigeria, we conducted a study to assess the attitude of health professionals towards rehabilitation robotics in Nigeria, and it was a mixed population. We had physiotherapists, occupational therapists, neurologists, all members, all the people that partook in this study, different ages, different training, masters, degree holders, DPT, different training. And what we had from this study was that 77% of these health professionals, they actually accepted. It's a mixed report. So we have some people, for example, the 77% I mentioned, accepting that rehabilitation robotics should be part of rehabilitation, stroke rehabilitation. We also have a large percent, at least half, 52.7%, saying that they are very likely to recommend rehabilitation robotics. But then, by the time we ask them some specific questions to know their attitude towards it, for example, asking them things like if they feel that rehabilitation robotics will be able to improve motor recovery, we began to have skeptical answers. For example, we have up to like 1/3 of them saying they strongly agree, about a quarter of them saying they are neutral. So it's more like the attitude or the perception is more like they accept that rehabilitation robotics is beneficial to the patient, but there is need for education, knowledge to know what aspects of recovery can rehabilitation robotics address, and how specifically can this improve the quality of life of patients. Then also, when we ask them questions, we also began to get statements like rehabilitation robots are costly, are we sure they are safe? Things like, what if there is a malfunction? Do we have the engineers that will be able to repair these robots? You understand? So there are concerns. There are also concerns about for example, we're getting statements like job losses. People were skeptical that perhaps these robots could take their jobs. So there's need for enlightenment to know that what we are encouraging is the partnership, that is the incorporation of rehabilitation robots with conventional therapy. And we're not saying that robots should totally take away the jobs of physiotherapists or any other therapists. Okay, so next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so these addresses, for example, they mention statements like job losses, people making statements about safety. What about the training? They are saying we are not trained to use some of these robots that we are here about. We get training for us if these robots are made available. So, next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, but despite these concerns about rehabilitation robots, both in Nigeria and Ghana and most African countries, there are still rehabilitation robots that have been created by the different groups. For example, the IFE Rehabilitation Robotic Group has created the IFE Robotic Gloves. There's also a system project that's a platform for upper limb rehabilitation, stroke rehabilitation, pulsar study, and we also have, for example, in Ghana, the arm recovery device being developed. We also have in Botswana the robot-assisted rehabilitation after HIV-associated stroke developed. But if you notice, these robots are developed by people in academics that have received grants. So you can see statements like, for example, the PI, the principal investigators that were involved in this to get the grants to be able to create these robots. What it means is that these robots are not available commercially, and also what it means is that they can't really live at home because they are maybe they are the ones that are developed are in a particular, maybe a building, a clinical, a clinic, and so people have to go there to use them. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so what is the current status of stroke rehabilitation, assistive technology, and rehabilitation robotics in Africa? There was a webinar organized by ICO and SASME Ghana. It was organized in Ghana last year, in 2024 years, last year, and some key questions were addressed during this workshop. That is to the current status of stroke rehabilitation in Africa. Then finally, to know the strategies, to try to create strategies for the inclusive implementation of these robots in Africa, and also the role of assistive technology and rehabilitation robots in Africa. And then please go to the next slide. The next slide, please. Yes, and the outcome of that workshop were that recommendations were made. And these recommendations were made targeting capacity building, knowledge, the sharing of the accurate knowledge. That is why one of the recommendations from that workshop was that there should be a subsequent workshop where there will be training, where there will be knowledge sharing. Another recommendation of this workshop was collaboration with other universities that are not just in Africa, collaboration so that they can be trained, knowledge transfer from those people that already have they're already constantly exposed or already used to the use of these rehabilitation robots, to be able to share the knowledge with us, and then training also, because if these robots have faults or of any kind, we need our engineers to be able to repair them so that we don't have to wait for a long period of time. So we can see that there is inadequate rehabilitation from the findings and the study, both the study that I showed you, and then the pragmatic recommendations that for rehabilitation robotics, the study by Adams and other members of the team that were part of that workshop. We can see that there's inadequate rehabilitation infrastructure. In fact, there's limited access to assistive technologies. The wheelchairs that most of the people here in Nigeria, in Ghana, what they use are usually from maybe donations. Some of these wheelchairs might not be fit, or for example, one of the people who collaborated that way, certainly collaborated with during the workshop was the International Society of Wheelchair Providers, to be able to ensure that these wheelchairs are not just given to the people with disabilities. These assistive technologies are not just given, they are to ensure that they are well suited for persons with these disabilities. So in terms of acceptance, as I mentioned before, there is very level of acceptance because there are fears of job loss, fears of lack of trained people to handle these robots, fear of safety. Even safety, there are concerns that these robots might not be so safe. Are we sure they won't be doing the procedures harm someone? Different fears, but they are varied. People are still willing to accept the use of rehabilitation robots, and in fact, people in African countries are developing the ones they are able to develop. So, but the challenge is there is limited funding, lack of trained professionals, as I mentioned, and inadequate policy support. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So, as I mentioned, the publication came out of that workshop, but more important than this publication is that the need for the knowledge, awareness, people to be aware, people in Nigeria and Ghana and different countries to be aware of the benefits of the rehabilitation robots, especially to people with disabilities, to improve their quality of health, to improve their ambulation. They don't need to stay at a particular spot until they are being, they don't need to be confined to buildings because they have disabilities. These assistive technologies, these rehabilitation robots can make things better for them. And so we have a need, capacity building, we need workforce development. So limited capacity and expertise in rehabilitation robotics in Africa, like I mentioned before, and there's need for support and resources in order to maintain the momentum to ensure that there's long-term impact. So it's not just a one-off thing. We want a long-term impact, and we want our engineers to be trained so that they can at least maintain these robots and they can create the simple ones that can address some of the needs of people that have disabilities. So we need partnership, different African organizations and even international organizations in order to provide technical expertise, resources, and networking opportunities. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So, as I mentioned, there was a proposition for a conference in a workshop in next year, 2026, still in Accra, Ghana, and the objective is to promote collaboration among stakeholders, to provide training, capacity building, as I mentioned before, to discuss latest advancements in rehabilitation robotics worldwide, so that we can have a more review. Okay, this is possible, these are things that are happening, these are the benefits of them. So the expected outcome of that workshop that we are intending to hold in 2026 is enhanced collaboration, increased awareness, improved capacity building, development of solutions, rehabilitation robots, and assistive technology. Next slide, please. Okay. So the call to action is we need support within partnership. We need these things. We need sustainability to ensure that people have access to rehabilitation robots in Africa. So in conclusion, rehabilitation robots, they have the potential to improve the health outcomes, to make things better for people with disabilities. And we need support. We need partnership, knowledge sharing with organizations in countries that have advanced rehabilitation robots. We need partnership in order to create a workforce, trained professionals that can handle these robots and then make it better for people with disabilities. Okay, so next slide, please. So, of course, it's a collective endeavor. Bridging the rehabilitation robotics divide in LMICs, in countries in Africa and other low and medium income countries, there's a need for collective efforts. Because, as I stated in the beginning, 80% of these persons with disabilities live in LMICs. So if 80% of the population that have these disabilities are in LMICs, we cannot neglect LMICs. Thank you very much. This is my email and that of Sir Adams. So I'll be expecting your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adams. Notwithstanding this little technical problem, we did a great job. You have a second talk by Ebenezer you want to share, or are we done?
Okay, it's incorporated. I wasn't very sure if the time would be split, so it's incorporated. That's why you hear me make mention of situations in Ghana and also making examples of situations in Nigeria and mentioning the ICO workshop. So it's joined together. All right. Because of the time factor. Thank you so much.
So this is now 4. I think we have a good 15 to 20 minutes to have some panel discussion, which I would really very much enjoy after this. Well, landscape on, again, countries which unfortunately usually are neglected during conferences. So this is a very good opportunity. However, okay, so first of all, we have a question. This is a technical question through the YouTube chat for Dr. Srinivasan. Dr. Sriram from Anna University is asking, I have read your publication on robotic prosthetic ankle. Why have you used an MR damper? I need to confess that I don't exactly know what he means, an MR damper here.
That's a magnetoreological damper, but I'm not sure how that question is relevant to this webinar. I'd suggest that you get in touch with me outside of this to discuss that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. So, Oliver, I have a round of single question to all of you. So first I'd ask Dr. Ad Adams, let's say that you have a class you're teaching to. What is your main suggestion to young people in Ghana or in Nigeria who want to pursue, well, rehabilitation in general, with all the problems that it brings, and rehabilitation robotics specifically?
Okay. So, thank you so much for your question because I also had a similar challenge, having an interest in rehabilitation robotics and there being limited resources. But what I did was, for example, because I heard about conferences in other African countries, for example, the conference in Ghana that talked about rehabilitation robotics, I went there to gain the knowledge that I needed. Then when there were opportunities in universities for research assistants in the development of rehabilitation robots, I also tuned into that opportunity. So for young people who have interest in improving their hands-on skills in rehabilitation robotics, they should look out for the opportunities are few, but they are available. Look out for opportunities to partner with even if you need offering your services as a research assistant with universities, single individuals, organizations who are creating rehabilitation robots or even studying about them. Then also, for example, engaging in conferences and webinars. For example, this webinar that was organized by ICO. I might not be able to physically go to where these to maybe Switzerland and Germany, but by this webinar I'm able to at least expand my horizon to understand more about rehabilitation robotics until I'm able to handle them. Yeah. So as much opportunity as you can, virtually, physically, try to gain knowledge and try to incorporate them in your own setting.
I side 120% with your words. I do that with my associates as well. I mean, given the budget we have, I always ask them, take a plane, go there and talk to people, and I usually go with them so I can help them network and then disseminate your stuff. That's the idea. Let me remind all our audience that the I-Core has a very limited budget as a non-profit organization, but every year we have scholarships for people who need to travel to the conferences from low middle income countries. The instructions on how to apply are on the website, or you can drop a mail to me or whoever in the board. So for instance, Robert Rina, the current president, and I think in 1 month the new president will be Herman van der Kooi. Oh, anyway, anyone in the board can be asked about that. That's good. Dr. Srinivasan, I would ask you the same question. What is your main advice to your young associates? Dr. Adams, would you please mute your microphone meanwhile?
So I think, as an engineer, for instance, what attracted me to this field was the chance to see tangible outcomes, tangible benefits from the work that I do. And I think, that kind of purposeful engineering may be appealing to some people. So if people who want to work in this area, I think if you have a passion for seeing quick results of the work that you do, or work that directly impacts people, because I think all kinds of research, all work impacts people in some way. It's just that with some types of work like what we do, you see the impact in a short time. And that can be a good motivator. At least for me, that was what motivated me to work in this area of assistive technology and rehabilitation. Opportunities, yes, it is a little difficult in India because many rehabilitation, there aren't many labs like my own where people get to work in a multidisciplinary setting. They get to learn from people with different backgrounds. But I think slowly those opportunities are increasing. I think assistive technologies, rehabilitation, there's more awareness being created. And I think that awareness is a very, very critical aspect. If we want to attract more people to these fields, awareness creation is extremely important. And once people realize what kind of a difference they can make, I think automatically the opportunities start coming up. When you have more technology adoption in this area, you have more engineers contributing, you have more clinicians who start becoming familiar and comfortable with the technology. So it's sort of like a catch-22. It has to
Like a sort of avalanche effect, right? Once you
yes,
put it in
yes,
motion, it sort of feeds upon itself and it becomes larger
yes,
and larger. Yeah, yeah.
yes. And that's the hope, because the problem
Yeah.
is of a scale where you need that kind of an avalanche effect for,
Yeah.
for it to make a difference. Yes,
And then in this case, we're talking about a real life avalanche effect. It's not just on the social media. I mean, I do
yes,
have my own account on LinkedIn, but that's not enough. This is again my lecture number one to my students is just go out and try it on people, because if it just stays in
yes,
the lab, it's worth nothing.
yes.
Anna, what do you tell your students over there in Jember?
Maybe firstly, I need to motivate myself first. Actually, uh, when I saw the presentation of Dr. Srinivasan, I'm like, wow, why I just focus on my lab? Actually, maybe some part of my research can be spin off, and maybe some, like as you said before, just people to just let people to try our product. Maybe at the beginning, maybe we need some modification, some suggestion, some adjustment. But my problem actually is firstly for myself. In many cases, I did many things, but never try to people involved. I mean, like most like you know, amputee people or maybe stroke patient, maybe one of them, just very few. And from this webinar, I think I get many lesson. As you said before, just try firstly, talk to the people, try our technology, maybe at the very beginning of product prototyping, try to improve them. So firstly, I need to motivate myself first. And the secondly, because in Indonesia, we have a lot of students, but maybe not many of them try to follow our step. But again, in here, we try to involve many person. I mean, like unlucky person, like paralyzed person, to try to uh, attract their empathy. So we need to help them, because like inclusive technology, or maybe it is their right to have some activity like us. But again, there are so many problems that uh, obstruct them to get what like what normal people do. So firstly, for myself again, I need to motivate myself, try to spin off one part of my research, and the secondly is try to involve my student as well, because most of them in my student, as you saw before in my lab, Professor Claudio, Dr. Claudio, most of them still in the lab.
Yeah,
I
right.
select very few to take them out to meet like paralyzed people, the needy. So that's why in my current research, actually in the wheelchair, I try to involve one person in paralyzed in cerebral palsy person. So try to help them to move the wheelchair by using the own audio, and also for the stroke person as well. But still, there are many steps to do, and maybe I need some suggestion from you and also from Dr. Srinivasan, how to tackle like some boring. Sometimes I get bored because I'm just thinking about the accuracy. How can improve the accuracy? How can improve the minimize the error? But again, most of them are still in healthy person, not in not on the one, not the paralyzed one. So maybe your suggestion is very good. Try to meet people, involve the person, the need person, the actual person that will use our technology.
I think this is very much the same problem we all have everywhere. Only in some specific places, I have seen a hospital connected directly with the Department of Engineering, and that's the best thing I've seen. And then you have a direct, so engineers have direct access to people, so to the end user population, and they learn so much. I mean, it's like myself, I started out 2005, and the first time I had contact with an amputated person, that is like, I mean, this is all a different language, different set of problems. It's all different because we engineers are not trying to get in touch with people, actually. As I would have one question again for the round, but first, do you have any comments in general? Any of you wants to take the microphone and say something, and then maybe you can have others comment on that.
Maybe from
I think what
myself. Yeah,
okay.
please,
Go ahead.
doctor. You go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to say that communication between engineers and doctors, that's a very critical part of working in an area like assistive technologies or rehabilitation robots. And breaking down those barriers can sometimes be very difficult. You know, right from the language that we speak as engineers versus the language that doctors. It took a while for us to form some of those connections and break some of those barriers. I'm just curious to know whether that's the case. And one of the things that helped us was I think we first started interacting with the therapists are there, but I find that people in therapists are more they seem more amenable to know more about technology because I think they see the benefits of technology in doing their jobs, for instance. So we may have to like gradually go up the chain to finally make a lot of doctors and surgeons understand the benefits of rehabilitation.
Right.
I'm just curious to know how it is in Indonesia or Germany even, you know, how is it easier in the so-called non-LMICs?
Well, as many problems you highlight are to some, I'll say, lesser extent common in, but Germany is a happy exception, I would say. But there's other countries even in Europe. I mean, as a thinking of, there's a common pattern in what you said. The three of you said today. There's a huge difference between rural people and people who live in the cities. And so assistive technologies are incredibly harder to be well used and accepted by people living in the countryside. That's all over the place like this. Like I said, Germany is basically all urbanized. But if you just move to Spain or to Italy, which is my original country, or to Greece or places in the United States, I'm sure the problem is the same. I have a question through the general. So again, the gentleman of before is asking, how does the IITM and your lab support spinning off? So taking a good idea to the market. You seem to, and then I would like to have the same question answered by Anam and possibly Dr. Adams, if there's any such support facility over there.
Yes. So IIT Madras does have a good ecosystem for spin-offs in general. They are quite encouraged. We have a good intellectual property management cell that helps with filing of patents, that helps with licensing, all that. But in the case of assistive technologies and rehab, I think our R2D2 itself, we have created that ecosystem where we provide funding through these grants to our own startups. You know, once they are at a fairly mature stage, we support them until like their first production run. So that really helps, especially for capital intensive, hardware startups, because it's so capital intensive. Because otherwise, where would they go for funding? So in the grants that we get at R2D2, the funding for the startup is also inbuilt into the grant.
Right.
So we tell the funding agency that, look, we are going to try to spin this off, and so we need you to support the startup until they are ready to start generating revenue. So
Yeah,
that's sort of how the grid model is structured,
very,
and
very
that's why we are
sensible.
able to do.
We have such structures directly embedded in the university. Dr. Adams, what is the situation over there? Is people encouraged to spin off?
Actually, the situation is not similar here because of the lack of resources. As I mentioned before, the rehabilitation robots that are being created are actually due to my funding, very narrow funding from perhaps tech fund. Maybe the government just gives a little funding to support some researchers. So it's not commercial. It's just let's carry out this study, let's see the effectiveness, but the money to push it to get to the commercial state, it's not really available. So we have a lot of resource limitation. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I suppose there's similar schemas in Indonesia. Anam, you mentioned that you are going to spin off, or you already spin off, or you have plans for bringing your
Yeah, plan.
devices to the market, right?
Yeah. For Indonesia, actually, our government have many grants currently. So from the beginning, from fundamental research until spinning off the product. Also, like I 3 years ago, maybe or 2023, I went to Germany from the government funding. So government funding will put on the product, on the research, also for the capacity building of the researcher. So both are planned by our government for next year, and this November they will open this grant. So maybe I'm intending to one of the product that I said before to get spin off this next year, not this year. But again, because our government, this one is medical one, so very hard, there is kind of clinical experiment, clinical
Oh, yeah.
validation. So we have to go through so many stages, not straight away we'll go to the market. So maybe there are some clinical examination before, but and I said before that our government will give us fund. It depends on where our product is. So if, for example, if our product still in the prototyping, so there is like prototyping grant. If our products already maybe we need some clinical experimental, so there is clinical experimental grant. If maybe already there and we need someone or some industry to scale up our product, there is another grant for that one. So in every stages of research, from the fundamental thing until the product side, our government already, announced the grant. Just what we need to do is not just to propose our grant to the government. So I think this webinar is very, very good for me just to wake me up. Okay, I have to put somewhere something to get to spin off, not only in the fundamental one, because what I presented this tonight mostly still in the fundamental one,
Yeah, right.
But some of them, okay, some of them maybe like some research, some product that still under examination for the patent. So maybe I can go for the prototype one for the prototyping first, then go for the clinical one, and finally go for the scaling up to the industry.
That's a very nice rendition of the series of hurdles that one has when, we want to move from the academic prototype to from how do they say, from bench to bedside, right? From something which works in your lab directly applicable to patients. But I believe we have an example here. So Dr. Srinivasan said you have 7 commercial products in your career, right? So that's a great achievement. It means that it can be done and it should be done.
It's very inspiring.
Yeah, right. You have a connection problem with Dr. Srinivasan, I'm afraid. So we still have a couple minutes in this webinar. So if any of you wants to make a final comment, we'd be glad to take it. We don't have questions through the YouTube chat. So the floor would be yours. Dr. Adams, if you have would you want to make some final comments here?
Okay, so the final comment I'm making is that LMICs need rehabilitation robots because of disabilities.
Right.
And individuals, young individuals, clinicians, or people who have interest in in making those robots available should not be discouraged by lack of resources. They should try to partner with organizations, no matter how little, and the aim is towards the improvement of the quality of life of people. Then, like you mentioned during the interaction, there's usually that divide between industry partnership and these labs or even, for example, the research group I told you about. It's not there's no industry partner. It's academic work. So I believe that countries and LMICs should perhaps begin to consider industry partnership, the partnership between industries and the academic, that is academics and partnership, NGOs and still industries. Just trying to find a way to make sure that we both achieve an aim, which is the provision of the aid that these persons with disabilities have. Yeah, thank you.
I believe that's a general comment which is good for all of us. Dr. Srinivasan, the connection has been restored. This is great. I was calling for a final comment, if you have any.
I would say that I think understanding the needs of the problem that you're trying to solve, sometimes that is the key to designing the right device and also ensuring its adoption. How can you simplify the problem? How can you, because as engineers, sometimes we just tend to get excited about the technology, or by the complexity. We have access to the latest gadgets, the motors, actuators, what have you. But what we have to think about is how can I simplify this so that it could go to the bedside? How much can I simplify this so that it's still functional, it's still relevant, it still does what it's supposed to do, but without the complexity? I think sometimes getting to the essence of that can determine whether it's going to make that journey from the bench to the bedside, as you mentioned.
I agree with that. There's a keyword or a buzzword, if you prefer. Now in the community, we talk about co-creation, right? Co-design, co-creation. It means you don't even design a prosthetic hand. You first go to all the organizations, charity associations, group of interest in this case, upper limb amputees. You assemble them around the table and ask, okay, guys, what can we do for you? So what is not working, right? And how can we fix that? And from there, you start designing in a round of collaboration. You start designing your device together with the end target population. I mean, and this is all over the place in the commercial world. Like, it's called focus groups. So I want to market a new brand of ice cream, and I try to figure out what ice cream people want. I wonder why we don't do the same. So I'm designing a new upper limb stroke rehabilitation device. Well, the first thing I should do is I go to the hospitals who treat that kind of patients and ask, what is not working right now? Or what do people wish for them? I think that if we can let these keywords seep through the community, like really penetrating the community, we will have achieved something. Last but not
Absolutely.
least,
That's the D pillar of the grid model, the dissemination, work with the users throughout the journey, understand their needs. I think it always starts with the needs and the needs validated by users, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Totally agree. Anam, you have a final word, and then I think it's 1 hour, 30 minutes. We might want to close this webinar.
Actually, my word is thank you very much for having me here, because I get so many insightful understanding, lesson learned best practice from Nigeria, from the India, from Dr. Srinivasan. So from you as well, thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we should thank you all and all the participants of our webinar in general. I mean, it's always nice to have people give us a completely different point of view.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for
Next
all the
webinar.
insights.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next webinar number 10 will happen in probably January or February 2026. I'll see you again on this YouTube channel. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
very
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you.